They walked the same streets they once patrolled, wore the same uniforms, carried the same badges. But when the guns finally fell silent in May 1945, those badges became death sentences. Police, who spent 5 years hunting resistance fighters, rounding up Jews, torturing prisoners in basement cells, now the hunters became the hunted. In France, 10,000 executed before trials even began. In Belgium, 242 shot. In the Netherlands, 34 faced firing squads. These weren't random killings, these were reckonings. The question wasn't whether collaborationist police would pay, the question was how much blood would satisfy 5 years of rage. And when liberation came, why did some walk free while others died against prison walls? This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Brooklyn Journal of International Law, published in 2015 by the Brooklyn Law School examining post-World War II collaboration trials, and Holocaust Encyclopedia entries from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, with the most recent updates from October 2025. These sources provide court records, trial transcripts, and execution documentation that confirm every date, name, and number you'll hear. Now back to the information. French police knock on doors across the city, not German SS, not Gestapo, French cops, 9,000 of them. They have lists, Jewish families, addresses, ages. By noon, 13,000 people stand packed inside the Velodrome d'Hiver Stadium. 4,015 are children. The police who rounded them up, they wore French uniforms, carried French badges, followed French orders. Within days, cattle cars rolled east, Drancy internment camp, then Auschwitz. Of those 13,000, 30 survived. René Bousquet, Secretary General of the Vichy Police from May 1942 to December 1943. 33 years old when he took the job, hero to some. He'd saved dozens from drowning in floods back in 1930, Legion of Honor recipient. Rising star in French civil service. But by summer 1942, he was negotiating with SS commanders, not resisting them, negotiating. Karl Oberg, higher SS and police leader for occupied France, wanted Jews. Bousquet delivered 10,000 foreign Jews from the unoccupied zone. Then he exceeded requirements. Children under 16, not on the Nazi list. Bousquet added them. Prime Minister Pierre Laval's order, but Bousquet made it happen. Don't separate families, they said. In reality, they separated everyone, parents in one convoy, children in another. By January 1943, Bousquet was helping organize the Marseille Roundup. 30,000 expelled from the old port. French police did the work, not under duress, not forced at gunpoint. They followed orders from French commanders. 60 pages of orders signed by Bousquet, arrest lists, deportation schedules, transfer manifests, 1,600 Jews from Bordeaux region alone, 223 were children. The trains left for Drancy, from Drancy to Auschwitz. Almost none returned. Historians found these documents in 1981. Michel Bergès discovered them in February, Department Archives, sitting there for decades. Michel Slatinsky brought them to light. He'd survived, his family hadn't. Taken in the night of October 19th through 20th, 1942, he was 17, got away, spent 40 years waiting for justice. Second in command for the region, supervisor of the Service for Jewish Questions. 29 years old when the position opened, ambitious, efficient, ruthless. Between 1942 and 1944, he ordered the arrest and deportation of 1,560 Jews. Some as young as 6 months, some as old as 90. The majority went to Drancy first, holding camp outside Paris, then eastward, Auschwitz, Sobibor, Treblinka. By mid-1944, the writing was on the wall. Germany was losing. Papon began feeding information to the resistance, playing both sides. After liberation, this double game paid off. He received the Carte d'Ancien Combattant de la Résistance, recognition for resistance work. It bought him time, bought him a career. Laurent Joly, historian specializing in the period, documented this. They were bureaucrats, civil servants. Professional honor dictated they complete tasks efficiently. Some warned Jewish friends in advance. Some felt horror but followed orders anyway. The Paris police arrested 38,500 of the 74,150 Jews deported from the Paris prefecture. French cops did this, not Germans. The prefecture, founded by Napoleon in 1800, one of France's most prestigious institutions. By 1942, it was a deportation machine. Not every arrondissement performed equally. Central Paris districts had proportionally fewer arrests. Farther districts had higher rates. Some targets evaded capture, but the numbers don't lie. 38,500 arrests by French police. Paraded through streets, spat on, beaten, Collaborators dragged from homes, thrown onto wagons, pulled through town squares while crowds screamed. Police collaborators got worse. They knew too much, had too much blood on their hands. Estimates vary wildly. Police prefects in 1948 and 1952 reported 6,000 executions before liberation, 4,000 after. U.S. forces counted 80,000 summary executions. The French Interior Minister in March 1945 claimed 105,000. Modern historians settle between 10,000 and 15,000. Nobody knows the real number. Too much chaos, too many bodies in rivers, too many shallow graves in forests. Created January 30th, 1943 by the Vichy regime with German help. Joseph Darnand commanded them, Secretary General under Prime Minister Pierre Laval, 25,000 to 35,000 members at peak strength by June 1944. They wore black uniforms, hunted resistance fighters, tortured prisoners, executed civilians. The French resistance feared the milice more than the Gestapo. They spoke French, knew the towns, knew the people, knew who to pressure, knew who to bribe, knew who to kill. When Allied forces liberated France, milice offices got ransacked, agents beaten, thrown from windows, thrown into rivers. At Le Grand Bornand, French forces of the interior executed 76 captured milice members on August 24th, 1944. No trials, no delays. Lined up and shot. A loudspeaker announcement condemned the tribunal for weakness, promised to revise the court-martial composition to ensure all militiamen got death. The crowd cheered. 4,000 people braved wind and rain to watch 6 men die. The London Times correspondent covered it, wrote about the scale. The enthusiasm, the certainty that this was justice. Those 6 fell slowly. Witnesses said they dropped in terrible unison. One reporter, John Osborne, wrote for Life magazine, said he wanted to cry when he first saw them. Young, wretched, unshaven, easy to sentimentalize. Until you remembered what they'd done. The rapes, the murders, the betrayals, then the sympathy evaporated. By September, special courts opened. Courts of justice, 300,000 cases investigated, more than half closed without indictment. From 1944 to 1951, official courts sentenced 6,763 people to death, 3,910 in absentia, 2,853 in the presence of the accused. Of those present, 73% got their sentences commuted by de Gaulle, 767 executions carried out. Add that to the summary executions. 10,500 total deaths from the purge. Maybe more, maybe 15,000. The numbers blur. Charles de Gaulle commuted the sentence to life imprisonment. Pétain died in prison in 1951. Pierre Laval didn't get mercy. Prime Minister of Vichy, tried, convicted, executed. But Joseph Darnand, leader of the milice, he ran, fled to Germany. Joined the Waffen-SS Charlemagne division with other milice survivors. When Germany fell, he was captured, tried by a French court, found guilty, executed. 18 other prominent fascists were executed alongside him, but most police collaborators, they slipped through. Tried in 1949, 4 years after liberation. Passions cooled, society normalizing. Southwestern radicals had influence. The jury somehow failed to probe his role in Jewish deportations. 5 years of degradation national degradation, loss of civil rights, but immediately lifted because of alleged services to the resistance. The protection he'd given to resistance fighters in late 1944 suddenly mattered more than 1,600 Jews sent to death camps. He couldn't return to civil service, so he went into business. Banque d'Indochine built a fortune. By the 1980s, he was wealthy, connected, protected, friends with François Mitterrand, who became president in 1981. Returned to government service, became chief of Paris police under de Gaulle, 1958 to 1967. During the Algerian War, he gave orders for the Paris massacre of 1961, October 17th. 30,000 Algerians demonstrated peacefully against a curfew. Papon ordered police to attack. 12,000 arrested, hundreds beaten, bodies dumped in the Seine. Estimates range from 40 to 200 deaths. De Gaulle personally awarded Papon the Legion of Honor that same year. Later, Papon became budget minister under President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, served from 1978 to 1981, high government office, prestige, power. His Vichy past stayed buried until May 6, 1981, 4 days before the presidential election runoff. Le Canard Enchaîné published documents. Orders signed by Papon. Deportation of 1,690 Jews from Bordeaux, 223 children among them. The newspaper got the documents from Michel Slitinsky, who got them from historian Michel Berger. Published at the worst possible moment for Papon's political patrons. Popular justice, extrajudicial killings. By the time military tribunals organized in September 1944, emotions had cooled slightly. The tribunal established in Antwerp on September 18, 1944. Office buildings of the Agence Maritime Internationale on Meer Street became the courthouse. On December 9, 1944, a V-weapon hit the building. The trials continued, 4 forms of collaboration recognized: political, economic, military, denunciation. Police fell under multiple categories. More than 405,000 files opened between 1944 and 1949. Majority discontinued. Approximately 53,000 resulted in convictions, 2,940 sentenced to death. But most sentences were commuted. 242 actually executed. 1,733 died before liberation. 300 executed. Many more died from torture, disease, exposure. 23 Flemish SS officers, workers, and guards went on trial in 1946. The court convicted 18. Sentenced to firing squad in 1947, 2 appealed successfully, got life imprisonment instead. 4 others got life. 1 got 20 years, 1 acquitted. 2 sentenced to life were never found. Philipp Schmidt, Nazi camp commandant, tried in Antwerp in 1949. Sentenced to death. Shot by firing squad August 9, 1950. But public opinion focused on German crimes. Belgian police collaborators received less scrutiny. The Jewish deportations weren't emphasized. Erich Holm, head of the anti-Jewish section of SIPO SD in Antwerp, never arrested. Belgian legislation after the war wasn't adapted to Holocaust crimes. The military tribunal made little of Belgian police involvement in deportations. Capital punishment had been abolished in 1905 when the Netherlands gained independence, reinstated specifically for collaboration trials. Vidkun Quisling of Norway became the example everyone followed. His name became synonymous with traitor. But in the Netherlands, the numbers tell the story. NSB, the Dutch Nazi Party, had 80,000 members by war's end, never more than 1% of the population, 3% of adult males. Every new mayor appointed by Germans was NSB. But for higher functions, Germans kept existing administrators, easier than finding qualified NSB members. When liberation came, approximately 120,000 NSB members and collaborators got arrested. Prisons overflowed. Former concentration camps at Westerbork and Vught became detention centers. Women collaborators went to special camps. Kamp Amsvoorde held females accused of collaboration. 7,000 Dutch collaborators, including 300 SS, imprisoned at former concentration camp Vught in June 1945. They wore old concentration camp clothes, cleared landmines around the area. Collaborators forced to carry stones at harbor sheds in Amsterdam. Levantkade. June 1945. NSB members and their wives publicly humiliated. Heads shaved, tied to lampposts. Crowds jeered. 10 Dutch collaborators brought to temporary headquarters. Waffen SS volunteers, NSKK members, Dutch Landwacht. Later that day, they were taken away, supposedly to prison camp at Vletter. Never made it. All 10 shot without trial in the Koepelbos forest. For decades, people thought Canadians did it. By 1995, truth emerged. 2 former Dutch resistance fighters confessed. 1 admitted firing the shots. A Canadian driver and gravediggers were present. Exact reasons never fully clarified. Different accounts exist. But 10 men died in that forest. No trial, no record. Just 10 bodies in shallow graves. Responsible for deporting 110,000 Dutch Jews. 6,000 survived. 300,000 Dutchmen deported for forced labor in Germany. His retaliation policy was brutal. 1 killed Nazi equaled 10 Dutch victims. 1 killed Dutch collaborator equaled 3 Dutch victims. During 1944, these numbers increased sharply. At Scheveningen prison, he built a special block for political prisoners. 28,000 detained over 4 years. 738 men and 21 women died there or at nearby execution field, the Walsdorfer Vlakte. On March 6, 1945, Dutch resistance attacked his car at Oosterhoeve. Rauter survived. Germans rounded up 117 men at the ambush site, executed them immediately. Another 147 Gestapo prisoners executed elsewhere. British captured Rauter in hospital after Germany surrendered. Dutch tried him, convicted, sentenced to death, executed by firing squad near Scheveningen on March 24, 1949. 3 under Allied military law. Capital punishment had been rare before the war, last execution in 1876, but collaboration demanded it. The legal purge investigated 130,000 people. 23,000 tried. 13,600 found guilty. 43 condemned to death. 30 executed. Vidkun Quisling led the list. Minister-president during Nazi occupation, arrested May 9, 1945, 1 day after Germany surrendered. Trial began August 20th, lasted until September 10th. charged with treason, murder, embezzlement, illegally bearing arms, attempting to change the constitution, bringing Norway under foreign jurisdiction. Found guilty on all charges except one property charge. October 24th, 1945. Akershus Fortress, Oslo. 11-member firing squad, 5 meters distance. Local chief of police commanded. Quisling executed at dawn. The place held symbolism. During occupation, Nazis used Akershus to imprison and execute Norwegian resistance members. Now it hosted the execution of Norway's chief traitor. First execution at 17 August 1945. Last on August 28, 1948. Ragnar Skanke, final person executed in Norway. The death penalty was never used again. The Italian resistance, La Resistenza, fought both Nazi Germany and the Italian Social Republic, RSI, Repubblica Sociale Italiana, Mussolini's puppet state in northern Italy from September 1943 to April 1945, Salo Republic. When Allied forces invaded Italy in September 1943, King Victor Emmanuel III arrested Mussolini. Italy switched sides, signed armistice with Allies. Germans responded by occupying northern Italy. SS paratroopers freed Mussolini, installed him as head of RSI. 43,000 Italian Jews remained in German-occupied territory. SS and police began immediate deportation, October and November 1943. Roundups in Rome, Milan, Genoa, Florence, Trieste, major cities. RSI police helped, not forced, helped. November 1943. Congress of Verona. Fascist authorities declared Italian Jews enemy nationality. Police Order No. 5. November 30th, 1943. Minister of Interior Guido Buffarini. Guidi ordered Italian police to arrest Jews and confiscate property. Before this, police only assisted when Germans specifically requested. After Verona, they actively participated. 772 Norwegian Jews deported. From Rome, they went to Stettin by ship, then trained to Auschwitz, most gassed immediately. 34 Norwegian Jewish men survived to war's end. Walter Audicio, using the name Colonel Valerio, got the execution order. April 28th, Mussolini and his mistress, Clara Petacci, shot. 15-member entourage, mostly RSI ministers, and officials also executed. Bodies brought to Milan, Piazzale Loreto Square, hung upside down. 18 executed prominent fascists displayed. Fernando Mezzasoma, Luigi Gatti, Alessandro Pavlini, Achille Starac. The location was deliberate. 1 year earlier, 15 enemies of Mussolini's regime had been displayed in the same square. Now the fascists hung there instead. The partisan purge killed between 12,000 and 26,000. Estimates vary. Most happened in extrajudicial executions. May 8, 1945. Communist partisans rounded up fascist supporters near Bologna, Pieve di Cento village. 12 suspected supporters killed at a nearby farmhouse. The Govoni family lived there. Cesare Govoni, his wife Caterina, 6 sons, 2 daughters. Fascist supporters. 2 sons, Dino and Marino, joined RSI. Bologna, liberated April 21st by Polish troops and Brigata Maiella partisans. May 10th. Partisans seized Marino Govoni. Initial interrogations had cleared the family. But partisan purposes required terror. Communist partisan units spread fear to gain political control. General amnesty was declared after hostilities ended. But communist partisans ignored it. They had scores to settle. Retaliation for a partisan attack that killed 33 German police. Caruso provided prisoners. After Rome's liberation, Caruso was tried in September 1944 by Italian court. First war crimes trial in Allied-occupied Italy. Angry mob invaded the courtroom, tried to lynch him. Authorities protected Caruso. Mob grabbed another fascist who was testifying. Dragged him out, drowned him in the Tiber. Trial continued without that witness. Caruso convicted, executed by firing squad. September 22nd, 1944. Northern Italy's ongoing fascist forces conducted retaliatory executions to avenge his death. Guido Buffarini Guidi, Minister of Interior for RSI, found guilty shortly after war's end, executed, but most RSI police avoided trials. Italian authorities conducted relatively few proceedings. Even officers who served Germans in Salo regime often escaped prosecution. This script relies on sources including the Holocaust Encyclopedia from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum updated October 2025, Wikipedia entries on the pursuit of Nazi collaborators updated within the past 2 weeks verified against academic sources, and the Brooklyn Journal of International Law article from 2015 examining collaboration trials and legal frameworks across occupied Europe. These sources provide execution records, trial transcripts, and contemporary court documents, Now back to the information. Immediate violence, then official trials, then amnesty, then forgetting. France exemplified this. Wild purge in 1944 and 1945. Legal purge through 1951. Then, the Fourth Republic granted widespread amnesty. Civil servants like Papon returned to power. Fifth Republic under de Gaulle continued this. The past was supposed to stay buried, but it didn't. By the 1970s, a new generation asked questions. Children and grandchildren of victims demanded answers. Jewish survivors' families stopped staying quiet. In 1945, they'd wanted to move on. Some feared renewed anti-Semitism, others felt survivors' guilt. By 1970, they worried history would be forgotten. Mikhail Slatinsky represented this shift, escaped at 17. Family taken October 19th through 20th, 1942. Spent decades building a case, filed charges against Bousquet in 1981. Stuck with it for 12 years. In 1989, they filed complaints against Bousquet for crimes against humanity. Association des fils et filles des déportés juifs de France, sons and daughters of Jewish déportés from France. National Federation of Déportés and Internés, Resistance and Patriots. Ligue des droits de l'homme. 3 organizations, United Front, 8 years of investigation, countless delay tactics. 1991, Bousquet finally indicted. Charges centered on deportation of 194 children from 6 southern departments. August 26th, 1942 roundup. Trial scheduled for 1993. By that point, only 4 senior Vichy officials had been indicted. Paul Touvier already stood trial in 1994, convicted. Life imprisonment for ordering execution of 7 Jewish hostages at Rillieux-la-Pape near Lyon. Died in prison in 1996. Maurice Papon's trial was scheduled. Posh neighborhood. Bousquet's apartment on the 6th floor. Doorbell rings. Domestic employee answers intercom. Man says he's delivering a package, gets buzzed up, knocks on apartment door. Bousquet opens it himself, 84 years old. The visitor reaches into his bag, not for documents. For a revolver, 4 shots, point-blank range. Bousquet tries to fight back, advances on the shooter, swearing, hitting. 2 more shots. Bousquet falls, dead before he hits the floor. The shooter runs, down the stairs, into the metro. Christian Didier, 51 years old. Calls reporters to a hotel, holds a press conference before police arrive, calls himself the good, calls Bousquet the evil, compares Bousquet to a cockroach, a serpent, says he feared Bousquet would never face trial. Police arrest him easily. He wanted to be caught, wanted the attention, wanted to be seen as an avenger. Patrick Quentin, lawyer for the League Against Racism and Anti-Semitism, said Bousquet needed to be judged, not killed. The trial would have exposed French complicity, would have forced France to confront its collaboration. Now that chance was gone. Some speculated the murder was ordered by Bousquet's political friends, to prevent his testimony, to keep secrets buried. The movement against racism and for friendship between people issued a statement. Only revisionists could rejoice, those who wanted to slow justice, those who wanted to erase history. His defense argued the killing represented response to failures of French justice system. At times, the trial seemed to be judging Bousquet instead of Didier. Didier testified about divine missions, visions in the forest, voices, sometimes coherent, sometimes mystical rambling, sometimes genuinely contrite. Asked forgiveness from Jews he deprived of a trial. Support committee formed, patriots, representatives of deportees. They saw Didier as misguided but well-intentioned. After release, Didier gave an interview, admitted he'd been depressed. Thought he was on divine mission. If he didn't kill Bousquet, he'd have no right to eternal grace. Now he was just a normal bloke. Laurent Binet mentioned him in the 2010 novel, called him the eye-watering cretin who deprived France of the trial of the century. Didier sued for defamation in 2013, lost, died May 14th, 2015. Lasted until April 2nd, 1998, accused of ordering arrest and deportation of 1,560 Jews, children, elderly, between 1942 and 1944. Same question as Adolf Eichmann's trial. How culpable is a mid-level official in a chain of responsibility? Defense argued Papon was following orders. Prosecution argued following orders isn't sufficient defense. 27 lawyers for victims' families. Prosecution associated with them as civil parties. Proceedings became muddy. Repetitious grandstanding. Nearly derailed when Judge Jean-Louis Castagnede discovered he had long lost Jewish cousins deported by Bordeaux Prefecture. Might be recused. Trial continued. Historians testified as experts. Jean-Pierre Azema, Henri Rousseau, Maurice Rajfus, René Raymond, Henri Amoureux. Robert Paxton from America. Defense tried to exclude Paxton, claimed international context was irrelevant. Magistrate dismissed that argument. Context matters for crimes against humanity. Depends on willingness to know as much as information availability. Reports of mass killings reached the West by summer 1942. But Nazi disinformation clouded things, conflicting rumors, Allied reluctance to be duped again. 1914 atrocity stories had been false. Many details only confirmed when camps were liberated in 1945. Universal shock, even for those who suspected. Papon claimed he humanized deportation conditions. Historians dismantled this. His concerns were for efficiency, claimed he used ordinary trains, not livestock cars. Historians said he wanted to prevent local sympathy for Jews. April 2nd, 1998. Verdict. Guilty of crimes against humanity. 10-year prison term. Prosecution had recommended 20 years. Life imprisonment was standard for such crimes, but Papon got 10. Also stripped of all decorations. Legion of Honor revoked. People convicted of severe crimes can't be members. Then transferred to France. European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg ruled in Papon's favor in July 2002. France reproached for unfair procedure. Papon denied right of appeal after fleeing to Switzerland, ordered to reimburse 30,000 euros court costs. Appeals court in France ruled Papon could be released on medical grounds. September 2002, 92 years old, failing health, released. Jewish and civil rights organizations protested vehemently. Michel Slatinsky, president of Association of Families of Deportation Victims, protested bitterly. A fact not taken into account that Papon dragged 6 old Jewish men with heart conditions from beds in October 1942. Hundreds demonstrated near Velodrome d'Hiver. Site of July 1942. Roundup. 13,000 Jews herded there. 4,015 children, all sent to camps. But political elite quietly approved Papon's release. Pierre Mesmer testified for Papon at trial. Mesmer was comrade of de Gaulle. Minister of War, 1960 to 1969. Prime Minister, 1972 to 1974. President of Charles de Gaulle Foundation. Member of French Academy. He defended Papon consistently. Support wasn't limited to Gaullists. Papon claimed he was victim of conspiracy of Jews and Freemasons. The government distanced itself publicly. Jacques Chirac rejected clemency pleas twice, April and July 2002. But Minister of Justice Dominique Perben said department viewed release differently than appeals court. Believed continued detention was warranted, would seek legal challenge, never happened. Papon remained free, died February 17, 2007. 96 years old, never spent significant time in prison for deporting 1,560 Jews. Immediate violence after liberation, wild purge, executions without trial, then organized justice, courts, sentences, then amnesty, then forgetting. Then decades later, renewed interest. Trials in the 1980s and 1990s. Klaus Barbie in 1987. The Butcher of Lyon, Gestapo chief, tried for deportation and death of Jewish refugee children hidden at Izieu village. Convicted, life imprisonment. Died in prison 1991. Paul Touvier in 1994. Milice intelligence chief for Lyon region. Convicted for murder of 7 Jewish hostages. Life imprisonment. Died 1996. Maurice Papon in 1998. Convicted for complicity in crimes against humanity. Served minimal time. Released 2002. Died 2007. 10,000 executed in France during the Purge. 242 in Belgium. 34 in the Netherlands. 40 in Norway. 15,000 estimated across Europe in summary executions. Another several thousand through official trials. But tens of thousands investigated. Hundreds of thousands accused. Most walked free. Police collaborators especially. They knew how systems worked. Knew who to approach. Knew how to cover tracks. Knew how to position themselves as helpful to all sides. René Bousquet gave information to resistance near war's end. Got decorated for it. Cancelled out 1,600 Jewish deportations in the jury's eyes. Maurice Papon played the same game. Resistance decoration bought him decades of freedom, career advancement, cabinet positions, until documents surfaced in 1981, until historians started digging, until survivors' families demanded answers. The Nazis kept meticulous records, so did their collaborators. French police in Paris recorded every arrest, 38,500 names, ages, addresses, destinations. Belgian military tribunals documented 405,000 investigations. Dutch authorities tracked 120,000 arrests. Norwegian courts processed 130,000 cases. Italian partisan units kept less formal records, but bodies don't lie. Mass graves, execution sites, Piazzale Loreto still stands in Milan. Valsdorpervlakte in the Netherlands is a national place of remembrance. 738 men and 21 women died there or at Scheveningen prison. Akershus Fortress in Oslo hosts a memorial, the place where Norwegian resistance members died, where Quisling was executed, where justice finally caught up to some. Only 242 executed. Netherlands investigated 200,000, only 34 executed. The math is simple. Investigation to execution ratio shows mercy, or exhaustion, or pragmatism. Countries needed civil servants, needed people who knew how systems worked. Couldn't execute everyone, couldn't imprison everyone, had to rebuild, had to function. So amnesty followed, pardons, commutations, release. By 1955, most convicted collaborators were free. By 1960, most had been amnestied. Careers resumed, government positions restored. Maurice Papon became Paris police chief, presided over the 1961 massacre of Algerians, got the Legion of Honor from de Gaulle for it. René Bousquet built a banking fortune, became friends with François Mitterrand, advised politicians, lived comfortably for 48 years after the war ended. Robert de Foy, Belgian collaborator, resumed as head of Belgian State Security Service from 1945 to 1958. Never even tried, just went back to work. The trials that finally came in the 1980s and 1990s weren't about punishment anymore. The accused were old men. Barbie was 74 at trial, Touvier was 78, Papon was 87, Bousquet was 84 when assassinated. Prison sentences meant little to men that age. The trials were about memory, about confronting history, about forcing nations to acknowledge what happened, France especially. Charles de Gaulle's post-war myth was that France had resisted, that Vichy was an aberration, that the French people never accepted occupation, that resistance was widespread and collaboration rare. This myth served its purpose, united the country, avoided civil war, allowed reconstruction. But it was a lie. Collaboration was extensive. Vichy wasn't imposed by Germany. It was chosen by French officials. Philippe Pétain was a national hero from World War I, Marshal of France. 84 years old in 1940, revered. When he took power, most French supported him. The Zone Libre, free zone in southern France, operated under Vichy from July 1940 to November 1942. Not under German occupation. Independent in theory, Vichy passed anti-Jewish laws before Germany requested them. October 1940, ahead of German demands. The French police rounded up Jews voluntarily, efficiently, bureaucratically. Contradicted national mythology, but documents don't lie. Vichy officials competed to please Germans, hoped for better position in new European order. René Bousquet's negotiations with Karl Oberg proved it, offering more Jews than requested, adding children to deportation lists. Organizing roundups independently, Maurice Papon's Bordeaux records proved it, signing arrest orders, scheduling transports, coordinating with Drancy, ensuring efficient deportation. Belgian police proved it, Dutch police proved it, Norwegian police under Quisling proved it. Italian RSI police proved it. Collaboration wasn't a few bad actors, it was systemic, institutional, professional. Documents analyzed, testimony compiled. When trial began, French television broadcast it. Citizens watched their history dissected, watched historians explain how bureaucracy enabled genocide, watched documents presented showing ordinary officials making extraordinary choices, watched Maurice Papon, former cabinet minister, former Paris police chief, defend signing orders that sent children to death camps. The trial lasted 6 months, longest in French history. National education, painful education, but necessary education. Henry Rousseau, historian who coined the term Vichy syndrome, testified, said, dealing with morally freighted pasts requires 4 approaches: purges, forgetting, trials, pedagogy, history lessons. France tried all 4, purges in 1944 through 1946, forgetting in 1950 through 1960, trials in 1980 through 1998, pedagogy ongoing. Each generation must relearn, must confront, must remember. Digital scans, available to researchers, available to descendants, names of victims, names of perpetrators, arrest records, deportation lists, trial transcripts, execution records. Mikhail Slatinsky found his family's names, taken October 19th through 20th, 1942. Orders signed by René Bousquet, sent to Drancy, then to Auschwitz, none returned. He spent 40 years searching for those documents, found them in 1981, published them in 1981. 4 days before a presidential election, timing deliberate, exposure necessary. Michel Bergès discovered them in February 1981 in Bordeaux Department Archives, sitting there, unsecured, unrestricted. Anyone could have found them. Nobody looked until Bergès. Then Slatinsky publicized them. Then Le Canard Enchaîné published them. Then Bousquet's comfortable retirement ended. Then investigations began. Then indictments came. Then, on June 8, 1993, 4 bullets ended Bousquet's life before he could testify. What would he have said? What details would have emerged? What officials would have been implicated? Who helped him after the war? Who protected him? Who benefited from his silence? These questions remain. Christian Didier silenced the witness, deprived France of answers. Laurent Binet was right. High water in Cretin, trial of the century, lost forever. But the documents remain, the archives remain, the testimony remains, the evidence remains. Bousquet organized the Vel d'Hiv roundup. 13,000 arrested, 4,015 children. Documents prove it. Orders signed by him. Schedules approved by him. Logistics coordinated by him. The August 26, 1942 roundup. 194 children from 6 southern departments. Documents prove it. The January 1943 Marseille raid. 30,000 expelled. Documents prove it. 1,600 Jews from Bordeaux region deported. 223 children. Documents prove it. His signature, his responsibility, his choice. Secretary General for Police, Bordeaux region, 1942 to 1944. The documents survived. Michel Berger found them. Historians analyzed them, testified about them. Papon tried to claim ignorance, claimed he was mid-level official, claimed he humanized conditions, claimed he had no choice. Documents proved otherwise. His signature on arrest orders, his coordination with Drancy, his efficiency in deportation, his knowledge of destination. By summer 1942, reports of mass killings had reached the West, vague, uncertain, but present. By 1943, more details emerged. By 1944, anyone paying attention knew. Papon paid attention. He was Secretary General for Police. He saw reports. He signed orders. He knew. Court found him guilty. Crimes against humanity. Complicity in unlawful arrest and detention. Complicity in deportation. Complicity in murder. 10 years. Too late, but guilty. Finally guilty. 56 years after the crimes. 87 years old, but guilty. Prosecuting. Confronting. Too late for most victims. Too late for most perpetrators. But not too late for history. Not too late for memory. Not too late for truth. The police who collaborated made choices, wore uniforms, carried badges, swore oaths, then broke them, hunted their neighbors. Arrested families, loaded trains, sent children to death camps, not at gunpoint, not under duress, voluntarily, efficiently, professionally. When liberation came, some paid immediately, beaten by mobs, shot in forests, drowned in rivers. Some paid later. Trials, convictions, executions. Some never paid, walked free, resumed careers, built fortunes, lived comfortably, died peacefully. The numbers show the disparity. 15,000 executed across Europe, maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000, but hundreds of thousands collaborated. Millions watched, millions knew. Millions did nothing. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum holds copies. Researchers access them daily. Descendants search for names. Historians write books. Documentary filmmakers create films. Each generation must confront this history, must learn these names, must read these documents, must understand how ordinary men in ordinary uniforms made extraordinary evil possible, how bureaucracy enabled genocide, how following orders wasn't enough, how professional duty became moral failure, how efficiency in deportation meant efficiency in murder, how 1,600 Jews disappeared because René Bousquet signed papers, how 1,560 Jews disappeared because Maurice Papon signed papers, how 38,500 Jews disappeared because Paris police arrested them, how hundreds of thousands disappeared because police across Europe did their jobs. 150,000 appeared in court. Most got some form of punishment. Names now public. Families now know. Descendants now confront. Same process happening across Europe. Archives opening. Documents digitizing. Names publishing. Too late for trials. Too late for punishment. But not too late for truth. Not too late for memory. Not too late for history. The police who collaborated left paper trails, signed orders, wrote reports, documented arrests, filed paperwork. Bureaucracy demands documentation. Even genocide requires paperwork, especially genocide. So the evidence survived. Will survive, must survive. Because forgetting is the final crime. Forgetting means they died for nothing. Remembering means they're never truly gone. The names in the archives, the faces in the photographs, the numbers on the deportation lists, each one was a person. Each one had a family. Each one died because police did their jobs too well. Said future generations might not believe it happened, needed proof, so they filmed, photographed, recorded testimony, preserved evidence. The collaborationist police left their own evidence, unintentionally. They documented their crimes, thinking they'd be protected, thinking Germany would win, thinking the new order would last, thinking their efficiency would be rewarded. Instead, their efficiency convicted them, their documents condemned them, their signatures proved guilt, some burned records at war's end, tried to destroy evidence. Too late. Too many copies, too many archives. Too much documentation survived. Enough to reconstruct what happened, enough to identify perpetrators, enough to trace victims, enough to ensure we never forget. The brutal fate of collaborationist police was deserved. Whether they faced firing squads in 1945 or courtrooms in 1998, whether they died against prison walls or in comfortable beds, they earned their fates. The only tragedy is that so many escaped, so many lived long lives, so many died peacefully. While their victims died in gas chambers, died in cattle cars, died in mass graves. 6 million Jews, murdered systematically, with extensive help from police who wore familiar uniforms, carried familiar badges, and hunted familiar faces. Their brutal fate was justice delayed. And for too many, justice denied.